start down low and go up there. Yeah, that's beautiful, Okay, awesome. Good. Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, right, a little slower, maybe a little slower. Yeah, sure.
Okay, good.
Okay, awesome. Now. Right, good. Great. Okay. Do that again. Okay, that's great. Okay, so
I get the gig?
You got the gig. Yeah, okay. Okay, that's great. Okay, cool. Okay, so now yeah, cool. Yeah. How you play? Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's how you play? Yeah, right, okay. Cool. Yeah, okay, that's like the classic Farkas embouchure, I think. Yeah, okay, right, okay, cool. With Tower of Power in the background. This is good. It's Mario. So, as you know, I'm making this DVD of everybody, and I'm asking them about their embouchure. So I'd like to know, like, did you ever change your embouchure over the course of your career?
Yeah.
And can you describe what you did and why?
I was in the LA Philharmonic for about 4 years, and I suddenly was having difficulty playing, like, out of the staff. And I changed mouthpieces and it got worse. And then I had to reconstruct my whole embouchure. Went back and studied with Jimmy Stamp again.
With Stamp?
With Stamp. And talked to every brass player in LA. Read every book I could find. And finally figured out that I needed to go back, and I'd studied with stamp before, but I really didn't listen carefully enough. So this time I took his stuff to heart and started working on putting a more independent embouchure together.
An independent embouchure, what does that mean?
Well, in other words, I didn't count on the mouthpiece for anything but amplifying what I was producing with my embouchure and air. And that really is the key, I think, to efficiency. And I found that out because the mouthpiece was falling off my face, and it wasn't
coming down.
Yeah, I couldn't keep it in the right place, but I had no face put together before I played. So I got that.
What do you think is the cause of mouthpiece pulling down like that?
Well, I think the biggest cause is that the air is not getting to the vibrating surface. In other words, if you really start with the air all the time, then you can put an embouchure together. But you can work on your embouchure forever if your air's not right. Nothing's going to happen. So that's when I really, went talked to singers, talked about how to not only take a breath, but basically how to keep the air in the right place so I could use it when I was going to play. So most people take a good breath, but then they choke it off and they get a lot of tension up in their upper body. So that's key to success for me.
Okay, so say that again. You learned about what was it? How did you put it? You decided that you needed this to be separate or independent.
Yeah, you need to feel that the embouchure, like Stamp talked about, just before you start to play, you make your face.
Right.
So then you put the mouthpiece on top of that.
Right.
And then everything. That's why, of course, the burp is so useful, because I do a lot of mouthpiece buzzing, and having the burp in place allows me to, on a daily basis, just re-examine that setup. And get it right before I go into the horn. Because once you're in the horn, you're into all sorts of bad old muscle memory.
So what do you think caused the need to change? Like what was happening that led up to the crisis?
Well, I think I was in survival mode up until then. I think I was muscling a lot of stuff.
Yeah, of course.
I think I was playing on a talent. Obviously, I'd gotten the job with the LA Philharmonic. I could play, but when things got tense, I didn't know where to go, and nobody really told me, broke it down so I could put it back together. So as things got more tense, because when you're in a job and you're having trouble, it's about the worst time that you want to have to put an embouchure together.
Right.
But it also, just like all great challenges and things that happen to you, it brought great teaching to me, and I was able to reconstruct and figure out what was going wrong.
Yeah, and of course we all can be reminded about air, even as professional players. My question to you, I have students, and it's obvious that they need to figure air more into the equation, and I say to them, use more air, and they nod their head. And I did the same thing when I was young, and it never really, it didn't click. And do you have any advice for teachers who are trying to get students to use more air?
Well, I think the problem with using more air, I think the idea is, it's a good concept, but reality is that it's the control of the air, not necessarily using more air. So if you watch great singers, really effortless singers, opera singers who know good sound production, are able to take their breath, suspend their breath, and then sit on top of that breath in order to play. And that's what I think we have to learn. Not many people teach the concept of taking the breath and then suspending the breath and being able to play on top of that air. When you actually find out how much air it takes to actually play, it's not very much. So the idea of using more air is more about connecting the air from note to note. Not so much using more, but making sure that those connections
I like that. Okay, good. That makes sense to me.
Because if you just start to use more and try more, you could blow your embouchure apart. Maybe that's not what you need to do.
Okay, but you know how like I'll hear students and they're muscling it.
Right.
And I try to bring that to their attention. And does that mean that they need to increase their air velocity and use less mouthpiece pressure, or what do I tell them?
Well, I think what happens is, first of all, before they get into trouble, they have to have this basic foundation of really good sound production. And what I do, like using the burp, I'll start them on wherever they do it right, wherever they can start to play correctly, and then gradually extend into the area where they start to muscle. The only reason they're muscling is because their energy source, the air, is not there for the embouchure.
The energy source.
The energy source, which is the air.
Okay.
In other words, if you think of a bow, like a violinist or a string player, somewhere the bow arm is stopping, and when the bow arm stops, the sound stops.
Right.
So if they can get this concept,
that's a nice concept. The bow, like the bow going back and forth,
right.
and
string players practice for hours on changing the bow back and forth.
That's great. That's a great analogy.
So we need to practice being able to sustain the air,
and tongue.
Right. And talk and you know, like be able to take the paper and blow it back 1 inch and hold it there for a minute or two.
I do that.
Yeah. And that's all you need. If you do that, that's as much air as you need to play a lot of stuff. So what you're doing there is you're holding your body, you're suspending your body and putting it in the right position to play. But the main thing I like to do is sing and then buzz and then play. Sing, actually.
You'll actually do that? You'll actually sing?
Oh yeah, I sing because you can't close your throat off and sing. So trumpet players have to learn how to do that. And if you can't.
Well, trumpet. Okay, now this is something I've never done. We do buzzing at all lessons, but I don't have them sing.
Have them sing because if they can learn how to go.
And then so they're suspending and
exactly. You're suspending the air. There's no cutting off in the throat because the sound would stop if they did. And then play, and then buzz the same way, and then play the same way. It's a very simple process. It really isn't brain surgery, but it's a new set of muscles that you're learning how to use.
So you know, when I look at the way you play, you know, you seem to have the most. I mean, I see absolutely no strain and no indication of any of your muscles in your face that you're even playing. It's like the most efficient that of anybody I know, but maybe I'm not hanging out with the really efficient players. I don't know, but and so you kind of develop this out of a reaction and a necessity.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I felt that the best thing I had to offer as a musician was my sound.
Right.
And I think that's true for everybody. And in order to keep that sound free, in order to keep that sound where it's going to hopefully go out and touch people, I had to figure out how to be really efficient with it. And to be efficient with it, I just kept working on you know, if you do a lot of mouthpiece buzzing and you can keep that buzz vibrating all over the horn, you know that sound is going to be efficient once you get on.
Well, Eric gets that too, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Up and down, and you never feel like he's gonna lose the sound.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And of course you're the same way.
Yeah.
So to conclude, and this is something I've been asking everybody. You know, do you have any advice? Hopefully, you know, this is going to be a DVD, and maybe it'll be available in stores where, like, young students can come and check out the embouchures and the playing of local players. Do you have any advice to young players that are trying to develop their playing and their sound?
Well, obviously you have to find a good teacher to help you, and then you have to understand, you have to be able to analyze, break things down, and put it into your own body and make it work for you, and then go out and play music and forget about the whole thing and just touch people with your music. But the main advice is to find someone that you like the way they play. You really see that same efficiency, because the proof is in the pudding. And if someone's muscling it and telling you to do it the wrong way, just don't waste your money.
Right.
Keep looking for the person that you want to hear, and then go work with them.
Right on. Okay, and then what's your routine? Do you have like when you get out, when you start the day playing, what do you do?
First of all, I make sure I'm centered, make sure that I'm present, that I'm doing what I want to do, and then I start to try to make a good sound. And I do it on the mouthpiece, in the burp, and I go into the pedals, and I go up as high as I want to go, and I can do it all in 15 or 20 minutes because I know what I'm trying to reproduce.
Right.
It's like a good baseball player or a basketball. Physical activity is, trumpet playing is a physical activity which we hope becomes a musical experience. But you need to start to get your body together and make sure it's happening. So there's no particular magic formula. You just got to do it for what works for you.
All right, take it easy.
Okay, good seeing you.
Great.
Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. So I've been interviewing people about embouchure, right? So I've been asking people, like, have they had any embouchure issues over the course of their career? And have you had any embouchure issues? Like, did you ever change your embouchure over the course of your career? Or even when you were coming up and learning?
Coming up and learning, I used to play off to the side.
Really?
And I didn't realize it was, I didn't have a teacher. I just ended up correcting it on my own because playing to the side didn't look right.
Yeah. So it didn't so you just changed it on your own?
Yeah, on my own.
Yeah, and that's really the gist of your embouchure issues?
No, because about 3 years ago, I had I think I told you about this, but I had a problem where I was playing a lot and I wasn't doing the proper practicing and maintenance just to make sure that I was performing right, that my chops were working. And what ended up happening is I ended up having a spread aperture.
Yes, we all have gone through that.
And what would happen is, even though I was playing center, because I would overblow and not necessarily focus on keeping tight corners,
right,
my top lip would end up spreading outward.
Yes.
And the rim of the mouthpiece would basically end up lying flat on my lip.
Yeah.
So this caused a bunch of endurance problems.
Yes. And also probably like playing soft and low isn't so easy when you do that.
Exactly. And also flexibility was a serious issue.
So what did you do to correct that? You just kind of remembered to do it and that was that, or?
No, I had to take a lesson from my college trumpet teacher.
Who was that?
Jay Rossetto.
And he told you what's up?
He told me what to do. He told me, got me into what you would call like a bunch of just soft long tones. But the whole process before doing the long tones was you had to set up the embouchure before you even put the horn on your face.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it involved like rolling the lips together, saying M.
Yeah.
And then the moment you bring the mouthpiece to your face, you let the center of your lips relax into the cup. Then you keep your corners set.
Yeah.
And then you just take a breath through the nose, and then just softly just try to blow until like you catch a buzz through the mouthpiece.
Yeah.
And the sound's not pretty, but what you're doing is you have a lot of swollen tissue if you're playing, just no matter how you play. You're trying to break down a lot of swollen tissue and getting it to vibrate in a new way.
Yeah.
So that was like took about a good 5-6 months before I started feeling comfortable, and I'm still working on it. But it feels a lot better than had I never changed it.
Yes, cool, man. So now one other thing, like for trumpet players that are trying to get better and stuff, do you have any advice to them? Can you think of anything in particular that you'd want to say to any students that are trying to improve on the trumpet?
I would say once you've established a good embouchure and good fundamentals, experiment with your sound. learn about the different timbres that you can get from the instrument. You know, learn what it's like to play brassy, learn what it's like to play nice and soft. You know, learn how to broaden your tone, how to narrow it, how to do all these basically by using your ears, but by avoiding overcompensating and playing incorrectly. And all this can be done mainly with your air. Just like a vocalist.
Yeah.
But most importantly, just listen to your sound. Record yourself if you have to, but listen. If you like it,
Thank you very much.
you're welcome.
A lot of low, soft playing, and sometimes I'll buzz on my mouthpiece, and I'll kind of do a gradual progression of where I first started on the trumpet to where I am today. We're doing whole notes, doing half notes, doing quarter notes, to extending my range up and down, to doing tonguing, to doing scales, and depending on how I'm feeling, you know, it should only take a couple minutes to really get warmed up, and after that point I'm really practicing whatever I'm working on, transposition, double tonguing, triple tonguing, C trumpet, piccolo trumpet, whatever, that kind of thing.
Right.
So,
Okay.
Nothing other than relax, put your, you know.
Yeah.
Actually, he really started me out buzzing, doing this. Try not to use pressure,
Yeah.
little as possible. I mean, you're going to use some, but
Right.
try to use little as possible.
Right. Cool.
And to breathe from your stomach, not your chest. Hold your
Right,
stomach
right,
tight
down,
to
right.
support that tone.
Not through the chest. Exactly.
No, no
right,
chest.
right.
So this would have been maybe when I was about 22 or 23. I'd come out of the Air Force Band, and with the circus, I had to play, just blow almost continuously, and it was a lot of punch and a lot of power you had to put out. So when I started it, I had a more of a classical thing, so I was sort of playing down, and what I did is I changed so that my head was up. Mm-hmm. I changed the structure with holding the horn. Mm-hmm. So I never hold the horn actually like this anymore. Mm-hmm. What I do is I always hold it like this, and that gives me about another 3 degrees of uplift.
Uh-huh.
And that allows that instead of compressing my neck with my head up here, the neck can then swell, and I can get a straight air column. Uh-huh. So what I've found out is that I could play. I can't do this anymore, but I can play literally for hours at the upper registers. And I'm just sitting there, and the lips aren't really working at all. It's all the air column that's doing the work. Listen to the good players, and then when I was teaching, what I would try and teach my students to do would be to start out, especially in jazz, just trying to play the chords. So just play triads and just try and play along with the songs. And then if they can get beyond the triads, then start actually running the scales. And then if they miss something, then they figure out how they can come back in on the next chord. And it isn't important that they actually have a smooth transition. It's the fact that they were able to remember where the next chord that they could come in with either an ascending or descending scale.
So playing along with records, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, playing along, and the other thing was just taking a fake book and reading the chords, and just trying to play the scales from the chords,
Right.
Or play the triads or things like that.
Now, do you screw it in a little bit, or does it just kind of sit there?
What, the embouchure?
Yeah. Does it kind of sit on top of the embouchure, or do you kind of have to screw it in?
I don't screw it in, but I definitely plant it on the upper part of my lip and the lower part, and then I just kind of let everything relax into the mouthpiece.
Okay. So do you think you're sort of creating an aperture through that kind of friction, or does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could say that. Quite honestly, I have a tooth that sticks out here. This little canine tooth here sticks out, and because of that, I think my mouthpiece on my trumpet, at least my trumpet and my trombone to a certain degree, my trombone embouchure is more centered, but this is my trumpet mouthpiece is to the right because it kind of rests on that tooth a little bit.
And
not right on it, but just off to the left of it. So, and I've always played like that. I don't know.
Did anyone teach you where did you learn your embouchure? Do you remember?
Trumpet, I'm sure I never really learned. I just
because you started on trombone.
I started on trombone, so I just kind of, I pretty much streeted it.
Okay.
The only embouchure advice that I ever got, and I think this applies to whatever brass instrument you're playing, is just to make sure your corners are firm and tight, so that you don't really have to put any pressure on the inside of your lips. It's all right here on the sides, and as long as you keep that tight, your corners. You should be able to play in any register, you know, without too much effort. Anyway, I mean, but I think that's the key.
Is that a B3 you playing on, or
this
what?
is a B3, I believe. Yeah, on that B3.
All right.
All right.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave.
What'd you do?
When I was like 17 or 18, I actually blew down my chin like this.
This is how you used to play.
How I used to play, and I had a teacher, and he moved my whole jaw forward.
Moved the jaw forward.
Moved the jaw forward, and basically told me about muscle groups, how they function and all that.
And so were you really down for the count for a while?
Man, I could hardly play G on top of the staff.
Okay, and then so you just kept at it.
Kept at it.
Yeah.
And got better and better.
Yeah, just slowly. Yeah?
Yeah, slowly.
Slowly.
Yeah. I mean, even in college, like I remember the age of 25 in college, I had like breakdowns, like not being able to play G's, and totally frustrated at times. Totally. I mean, I want to say the last 10 years, basically, I have maintained a certain level that I'm not playing below anymore. I mean, I have my days where I play on the bottom of that level, but it's still okay. I can still play, and then there's times basically I had to retrain my muscle. Or my muscle groups, you know, like retraining the jaw to stay forward, and I did a pencil exercise, you know, put the pencil like
the pencil exercise.
And so you did that? That strengthened my muscle, and like a straw, and I started blowing through.
So was it really like just kind of strengthening muscles that you weren't using previously? Or
I mean there was no muscle there actually because I was blowing completely differently. I mean the lower jaw had no muscle that supported the embouchure.
Right.
Yeah, I mean I believe in like symmetry, you know. I mean, there's people that play on the side and they sound really good, and there's people that play down and up. and they sound really good. For students, I always try to like perfect the embouchure as much as I possibly can. Stay in the middle, don't move over to the side. You know, like, I mean, don't level out the trumpet, pivot down just a hair, as little movement as possible, and just concentrate on the air.
On the air.
You know, this is just a tool, and this is not where it's happening. It's happening right here.
Yeah.
Diaphragm, airflow, tongue position, arching the tongue up and down, and just getting the bus going. And,
yeah. Chops feel?
Like hell.
Do you have an indentation?
Duh.
Explain.
My chops are too far apart, so I use a lot of pressure. So I try to keep them closer together.
Try to keep your aperture closer together?
Exactly. And play more wet.
So how's it going?
So far, pretty slow. It's fun starting over, Dave.
And so what made you decide you needed to do these? Because you think you play with too much pressure.
Too much pressure, the endurance isn't there, and the range suffers. You know, you get tired quick. Because you're just pounding on your face rather than using.
Do you think
chops.
that like some of your gigs, like have you been playing a lot of loud gigs, and that kind of made you play on that embouchure or something? And
I don't know. It just developed. You know, when you're a kid, you don't think about it, and then you just keep playing on it for years, and then when you run into a roadblock, you know you got to make a change.
So what was it was there like some real thing that happened that made you think, oh, I got to change my embouchure? Or?
I just knew there was a better way, because I see guys playing with a lot less pressure and having a lot more fun.
Right.
And a lot, it's a lot easier.
Okay, so explain exactly what you're trying to do to change your embouchure.
So the old way I play, I put my chops like this, and then I'll spread them open like this.
I see.
See that?
Okay, right. So you're kind of holding your aperture apart with pressure.
Exactly.
And so you're trying not to do that.
So I can play higher, but I have to press.
I see, right. I understand
if I start
completely.
Wet, I can start like this.
Right.
And my chops are together, and you just blow through lips that are together, and you don't have to use as much.
Right.
It's easier.
So with this change, what are you experiencing? Is it easier or is it harder? Or?
It's much easier.
Much easier.
It's just getting used to it, finding the right placement of the chops.
Right.
So we'll see. Only time will tell.
Aha. Now, how does that affect your embouchure?
I don't know. For a long time I thought it did, but I think just my mouth, you adjust to it. Like I always, had strange fantasies of like, what happens if that was straightened out?
Yeah.
And I always thought that it interfered with my seal.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't pull back all the way.
Right.
Because it would open up the seal. So thus, I was losing like a couple of inches or something like that. But I've learned to work around it over the years, so it's just I never know unless I get braces now, but that won't happen.
Yeah.
So yes, the big change was I used to have. I'm sure you can see the rim of the mouthpiece is like right above the lip, right?
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah.
So I used to have it right in the middle of the lip.
So it was lower.
It was way lower. It was like really right in the middle.
And why do you think you learned to play that way initially?
It was just comfortable.
Okay.
I didn't think much about it, and actually, when I was growing up, no one really mentioned anything. But what I did notice was that whenever I went up high, I never had good high range, the mouthpiece always slipped.
Uh-huh.
And it wasn't until actually I was in college, and it wasn't until I met Lori Frank, who is the Caruso person, and she immediately told me to move the mouthpiece up higher. And during that embouchure change, she also really emphasized when you're first, changing your embouchure, there's so many muscles around the mouth and lip area that when you're changing that embouchure, when you get it set to where you want to, breathe through your nose so that your mouth remembers where it is. Because every time you take the mouthpiece away, you forget where it is.
Okay.
So she was all about when I found it where I could get a good sound, and then, you know, over time, I learned where it was. And usually when you're changing embouchures, you know, you don't know where it is for a long time.
So you were able to actually find a new spot, and it sounded pretty good right off.
Yes. Yeah, well, I remember, I just thought it couldn't get worse.
Really? Okay.
Well, it was like, I felt like I couldn't get any better where I was. So even if the first month or two was bad, other people were telling me that I needed to change it.
Have you always had the same embouchure, or have you ever changed it?
Yeah, I changed. Well, sort of changed it. I played a lot of Mouthpiece and a lot of without the Mouthpiece for like in my car for about a year. That's all I did. Back in like between high school and college. Like my first college teacher, Joe Alessi, said you gotta do this. So I just every day I played, like every time I drove, I played the Mouthpiece or played without the Mouthpiece.
What was he trying to get you to change? Do you remember?
My tone was really airy. I had like that kind of tone, and I never had like, there was too much air in my sound.
Right.
So I refined my tone by just playing like exactly, all I did was play like Mouthpiece and focus. Trying to get
a good buzz?
Yeah, the most amount of tone I could get. And eventually all of a sudden I started getting a really focused sound. So then that's what's held ever since then.
So really, some real Mouthpiece, some serious Mouthpiece buzzing for a year.
Yeah, so I did an entire Mouthpiece buzzing for at least a year, and a lot of it was without the Mouthpiece, being able to do scales.
Oh, just doing that without the Mouthpiece? Yeah, I do that too.
A lot of control, and that actually ends up really concentrating your sound. Basically, to think of the embouchure is the first thing. The Mouthpiece is actually an amplifier, so if you can get away from using the Mouthpiece and actually be able to play tones, which a lot of trumpet players, even good ones, can't do, be able to play a song on your lips.
Yeah. Right.
You know, it makes so you can get up higher, lower, and that'll enable you to be able to play with less pressure.
Right.
And because you don't want to be forcing it, especially on high notes. I find that I can actually pull away when I do a really high note.
Oh my God.
So when you do you don't have to use any extra pressure. You just have to focus your air, and if you're warmed up enough and you got things going, you can be able to hit the high note.
I'm curious about your horn. What is it?
This is a Chicago Taylor model. It's a handmade horn made in London. It's got fenders, and this is the double
construction.
Yeah. Heavy mouthpiece. So it's a 1 pound mouthpiece. The horn weighs about 5 times as much as a normal horn. And the reason is it doesn't vibrate. What it does is it keeps the horn from vibrating. Like a cello, you want to hear the wood. On a brass instrument, the idea is that you don't want any of the brass vibrating. It shoots the sound out the bell. So it makes it a louder horn and more focused.
It's a very big bell.
And it's a very big bell, about 1.5 inches to inch and a half bigger than a normal bell.
You know, I think my tongue is arched like this. And so that air is not getting out that way. It's almost like I'm going
Okay.
And so my tongue is keeping all the air from going out, or most of it anyway.
Okay. Yeah. Yep.
You know, it's just I think that the tongue is arched. The
tongue keeps the air in this special airstream.
It focuses the airstream.
Like, is this one of these embouchures where you don't even know where it came from?
Exactly right. You don't want to try and play like that. It's just, I remember seeing when I was a kid the lead trumpet player for Steve Allen playing out the side.
Yeah.
And everyone says you're not supposed to do it that way, but he played great.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah. Another funny thing, I'll bet you haven't noticed this, Dave. When I go to set my horn, and some kid noticed this at a jazz festival, I kind of cock it a little bit, so it's like.
Yeah, so it goes.
And I don't know why I do that, but I can't just go
like that. Interesting.
It's not set there, so So I've got a weird embouchure.
Yeah. Now,
but it's more air and tongue efficiency. That's why.
And did you when you were growing up? Did you practice a lot, or like a little, or like how did you? What kind of practice?
I practiced all day long. I practiced all the time.
Where'd you grow up?
Vallejo.
Yeah.
And when I was in high school, I had no endurance and no range whatsoever. I could read really well, and I took first chair in honor bands and stuff like that. But it wasn't until the last few months of my senior year I went from, that note being my highest note.
No kidding.
To an octave higher, loud and all day long. And that note before was, I'd be toast after 10 minutes. But it was just.
And so you just figured out this thing. Like, have you ever met anyone else that plays like you?
No, but ask Lewis, because I think Lewis said he used to play that way, and he knows people that play that way too. Yeah. It's a wind instrument, and that's the most. There's all kinds of weird dogmas about the 2/3 up, 2/3 down, whatever, the center, whatever. It's a wind instrument, and it's long. And you can stay. You've sat next to me, Dave, when I play. I mean, there's sometimes stuff going, but as long as the sound coming out there is okay.
Right.
And my endurance is pretty good.
Yeah. Sure
It's a matter of efficiency, not overblowing.
Right. I agree. I totally agree with that. Hey, what's up, man?
Yo. Because I was playing.
Oh, wait, you were playing way up.
Right. The red of the lip was completely over the mouthpiece.
Right. Right.
And it wasn't making any problems in my range. I mean, I played a small equipment and I could play high like crazy.
Really?
But it was a real airy sound, and I was susceptible to cutting my lip and a lot of other issues. So, I mean, obviously,
you had to move it up,
and that took a long time.
How long?
But probably a good 6 months to a year.
And then were you like playing gigs during that time?
No, I was in high school. I was like a 10th grader.
Okay.
9th and 10th.
And so it just took some discipline and some persistence.
Yeah. It took having a legit trumpet teacher basically making me do it.
Making you do it.
And then...
Who was that teacher, by the way?
His name was Charlie Bubb.
Charlie Bubb, I've heard that name.
Yeah. And then over the years, it's just changed to just a quieter embouchure, I think, just by using air more.
Using air more. Okay, so you mean you made embouchure adjustments in order to make air adjustments.
And nothing conscious, but just I used to
play with a buddy of mine that used to always just say, keep your lips together and just think about having a straight line across and just...
And that's how you play?
And so I just kind of, gravitated towards that, and I do most of my routines and my warm-ups and practicing fairly soft so I keep everything together. I'm actually kind of studying the Jim Thompson buzzing basics and a lot of that stuff. And that, it seems like that embouchure calls for a really, really small aperture.
Yeah.
And to be played totally relaxed and to do no pivoting in lip slurs.
Right.
So whereas as I used to play like and do a lot more pivoting with my jaw, I'm trying to do more of
with your air, like with air.
Yeah,
with
just,
your air, with
just with air and a little bit of aperture.
Pucker, yeah, right. Yeah, that's how I do it.
And just more of that and less on shifting.
Right.
But it seems like that's going to take a while.
Did you? You took some lessons with Woody Shaw?
Yeah.
Wow, man.
And mentored under Alan Smith for 8 years and Rudy Salvini's big band. And Fred Berry helped me out. I changed my embouchure 3 times.
3 times?
And it's because I had the bad habit of playing too low on the upper lip. And the last time that I went through this was in 1987. And I took some great advice from a guy named Dave Len Scott. And what he said that the inner rim of the mouthpiece should always go above the red and below the red. And so if you do that, then you have all this musculature, the orbicularis, gripping the mouthpiece, protecting the red part of your lip, leaving it supple and easy to vibrate. And so it was amazing. And
so you were playing lower, and they weren't getting as much lip in there, maybe.
Right. And what had happened was when I would get tired, instead of relying on my air to do the work, it would be my chops.
Right.
And so what had happened was I was doing the Keely Smith show.
That's all right.
I was doing the Keely Smith show, and I was folding. And then I remember what Dave was telling me, and also I checked out some of my, some of my favorite trumpet players, and they all played pretty much up like this, And so I thought, I'm going to try that. And so I did that, and all of a sudden I had all my range back. The tone was a little spitty, and because I had switched to a wet embouchure, which is, I think, the right way to go. But my range came back, and I went and played the show that night, and I could play the whole show without getting tired.
Like it was an instant change that was better instantly?
Exactly.
Because that's kind of unusual.
It is unusual. It's very unusual. But the sound wasn't quite there, and I would go back and forth. When I had to play something exposed with a really good sound, I would revert back to the old way of playing. But eventually, the new embouchure, I just wound up using it after about like a 3 or 4 days.
Wow,
I just totally switched to it, and if I have a problem with it slipping down again, I remember what I went through, and what I do is I move it back up.
Yeah.
And I find that spot, and sometimes it'll slip a little bit, but usually it goes to where it should go, and then I'm good.
Right on, man.
Yeah. So I mean that's some. Yeah, I wrote about it in Pop McLaughlin's.
I have that book in the car,
book.
actually.
Right. Yeah. So if you want to get more in detail about it, pick up the book. And
it's called Embouchure.
How the Pros Do It. I would say that you should have your breathing be one continuous motion. Your inhale, your exhale. When you inhale, you drop your jaw slightly with the mouthpiece on your chops. You drop the jaw and you take your air in like you're saying the letter ho. O. And then you blow right away.
Right.
And if you ever saw the picture of Miles Davis with his finger up here like this.
Yeah, right.
And if you blow against your finger, you'll notice that these muscles will grip your finger, and that's what your embouchure does to your mouthpiece.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Right
so that's what I would say. Check out Miles Davis and take a deep breath, one continuous motion, be the glass, fill it from the bottom to the top, and then bang. You're good.
Keep going.
college at Oberlin, and I had a professor who was convinced that I was playing incorrectly. So we moved it up, moved it down. We did all types of stuff. I could barely play for a while. It was very depressing. And then I had a teacher who didn't. He said, "Forget it. Just think about the air."
Think about the air.
She said, "Just think about the air." That's all. I was like, "What about my embouchure? It's incorrect. It's wrong. Right? I have to change it." Don't worry about that. Just use the right air. So that was the first thing that set me up for playing well. And I started playing better then. And then I had another teacher who also, it's all about the air.
Wow.
So.
Okay.
That's my motto.
Man. So it's all about air. So what about the air?
It's well, you got to be blowing free and easy. You have to be, your body has to be relaxed. Airstream has to be working for you. You don't want to like strain and press too much to get the high notes.
Right.
I learned a really cool exercise from Michael Philip Mossman. He told me his exercise was you just blow air through the horn.
Yeah.
Like that, and then try to, like take that sensation of the air just like going easily through the horn, and then just play that way too.
Play that way too. Yeah. Right on. So it's kind of an air concept thing.
Yeah, it's just like blow free and easy. I spent a lot of time trying to make sure my whole upper body was relaxed as well.
Now, one time you told me that you, like when things are really working and you're playing super high, it almost feels like you're playing with no pressure. Is that
totally
true?
Relaxed. Yeah.
Can you demonstrate that?
I said when I was on. I don't know about
right.
It's just basically you get the air moving, and
do you want to come in?
It floats. What I teach is it's a figure.
Yeah.
Try to keep it open. I had problems for a while where I was getting my teeth too close together and it was backing up on me.
Okay.
So my feeling is if you got your jaws kind of like the frame of a barroom door, so your teeth are like this,
right,
and your lips just act as a swinging door in there.
Right.
And so you by activating with just the air and the compression, you can get it to vibrate as fast as you need. Well, it's been a long time, but I fell into the bel canto method of trying to strive for a real round, warm sound.
Right.
And trying, when I teach, it's like every note should sound the same, just like a piano player. You want to try to get the identical sound.
Right.
You don't want a high note to sound high. You want it to be open and strive for warmth and a nice big round sound.
I think I remember a teacher telling me that I had to change my embouchure at some point.
Yeah, but you never did.
No, I think I did.
Yeah.
But
it's all a blur.
Yeah, I mean, for my own students, the only time I'll start talking about embouchure changes is if they're playing down here.
Right.
You know, otherwise, man, my philosophy is like, your lips and my lips are a different shape.
Right.
Your shape of your mouth, mine, different. You know, so if I start telling you, it's like. If I started telling you what to do with your leg muscles while you were walking, it'd be really difficult to walk all of a sudden, right? So if you just focus on staying relaxed and breathing and pre-hearing the notes, then I believe that through conscious repetition in the practice room, your muscles will train themselves what they need to do.
Look.
Picture perfect. Have you ever had any embouchure problems over the course of your career, and did you ever have to change your embouchure?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, when I first started, my teachers were really about getting the job done, not necessarily about how to get the job done. So whatever it took. And so I screwed my embouchure up into weird shapes just to get the notes before I was ready, before I understood about air.
Right.
And support. And then I went through my whole, young career, went to the conservatory and was playing all sorts of stuff, and I realized that I'd hit a wall. I couldn't get much further, just by force of will, by just twisting stuff out. So I basically stopped playing for a couple years and let the old habits die, and then gradually brought on the new habits, trying to center it right in the center of all these muscles, and to use the combination of a nice strong face mask and grit and air, tons of air. And so now it's so much easier to play. It's so much easier. I have endurance, my sound is easy to produce, and I can do almost anything. I'm only limited by the amount that I can practice.
Right. What is it about the air that takes so long for us all to figure out? Because I remember teachers telling me use air, and I don't know, I just didn't figure it out.
Yeah.
I don't know. So what is it? How do we tell people the right way about the air? And
I think the experience of actually using your air the right way is kind of profoundly transforming experience. I mean, you cannot believe the physical sensation of being absolutely full of air under pressurized conditions. And when you're young, you're not used to thinking that you're going to have to actually work that hard or expand yourself to that extent. I mean, you think, yeah, I'm taking a lot of air. What are you talking about?
Right.
You don't know until you've actually really taken a huge amount of air, played with guys who are also using their air, and try to get your sound out there in the midst of them. So I would say for any student, if they have a chance to play with a section of professionals, that will teach you almost as much as anything else. You would just go, man, I didn't know. I didn't know. And I mean, it's a tremendous effort and total commitment to play the trumpet. I think the main thing is inspiration. I mean, you got to have something out there that you're aiming for that's really clear. And whatever it is that rings your bell, floats your boat, whatever the bliss is that you find when you listen to something, you should pursue that all the way. As far as you can go, find out what that person is doing, how he's doing it, get to know him, if possible, play with him, just to feel the physical presence of somebody you admire. But, go and hear people you love, and then set that out as a glowing model for yourself to follow. And because inspiration's got to carry you through all the pain and effort and discipline and boredom that it takes to get good.
And boredom.
So you got to be willing to put in the time, just like when you exercise, of repetitive efforts just to build your muscles, because it's a really muscular thing. All the chest and the back and the diaphragm and the face especially. And you got to know how to do it over a period of time, and you got to be able to give yourself breaks and let yourself build back up, and just keep doing it, man. Just keep doing it.
Right on.
Step by step.
So like 10 years ago, I took a lesson from Bobby Shue, and the beginning of the lesson, we were talking about embouchure, right? And he goes, and he showed me. He said, "Okay, you should form your embouchure like this, right?" And he showed me his embouchure, and he formed this embouchure that was so perfect, like there was like this perfect oval-shaped, tiny little aperture that he was able to just form naturally. And I thought, what a freak! How does he expect all of us to be able to do that? I sure couldn't do that, right? So anyways, 10 years later, it's now 10 years later, and now I can form that embouchure. I can just go, and there's like this tiny little aperture. Now how did that happen? I don't know.
You don't know, huh?
Don't really know. I just 10,000 hours later of playing the trumpet, I figured it out.
Okay.